The Middle East is on edge. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a massive attack on Israel from Gaza, killing over 1,200 Israelis and taking hundreds hostage. Israel responded with overwhelming force, launching a devastating campaign in Gaza and triggering a humanitarian crisis. The conflict's shockwaves have pushed the region closer to a multi-front war than at any time in recent memory. The United States, Israel's closest ally, rushed to provide military and diplomatic support, but its main concern was escalation. U.S. intelligence focused on whether Iran, Hamas's patron, would exploit the chaos to advance its own goals. For decades, Israel and Iran have fought a shadow war through cyber attacks, assassinations, and proxies. The October 7th attack threatened to bring this hidden conflict into the open, raising the specter of direct confrontation. U.S. officials knew that if Iran or its proxy Hezbollah opened a second front, the consequences would be catastrophic and global. Early in the war, Hezbollah fired rockets into northern Israel, prompting Israeli retaliation and mass evacuations. Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria ramped up attacks on U.S. bases, testing American resolve. In the Red Sea, Yemen's Houthi rebels targeted commercial shipping, disrupting global trade. Each incident probed red lines, pushing the region closer to disaster. The U.S. was forced to draw a clear line in the sand. The world watched, bracing for the next move. As tensions soared, the United States sent a blunt message to Tehran: don't escalate. President Biden, standing with Israel's prime minister, issued a global warning. Any direct Iranian involvement or major escalation by its proxies would trigger a swift U.S. response. Secretary of State Blinken toured the region, reinforcing deterrence and making clear the U.S. would act if its interests were threatened. Secretary of Defense Austin echoed this, emphasizing America's right to defend itself. The U.S. made it clear Iran would be held directly responsible for its proxy's actions. For years, Iran has used plausible deniability to shield itself while arming groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. The U.S. warning shattered that shield. Any major proxy attack would be treated as an Iranian attack, opening the door to direct retaliation. This public warning was a calculated risk, but ambiguity was seen as even more dangerous. The U.S. believed that only a clear, repeated warning could prevent miscalculation and all-out war. The message escalation would bring consequences too severe for Iran to ignore. The U.S. aimed to make restraint Tehran's only logical choice. The stakes were unmistakable. The world was put on notice. The next move was Iran's. The Gaza war didn't start the Iran-Israel conflict. It intensified it. For years, both sides have waged a shadow war. Israel with covert strikes and assassinations, Iran with cyber attacks and proxy militias. Since October 7th, Iranian-backed attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria have surged, injuring and killing American personnel and prompting U.S. airstrikes in response. The most dramatic escalation came in the Red Sea, where Iran-backed Houthis targeted global shipping, disrupting trade and threatening the world economy. Iran's axis of resistance, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, and the Houthis, gives Tehran reach across the region. But the U.S. warning made clear, this network is now a liability, not a shield. By activating its proxies, Iran risks justifying a broader, more forceful response. The shadow war is now dangerously close to open conflict. Every attack raises the stakes. The margin for error is shrinking. The world is watching. Warnings mean little without force to back them up. The U.S. rapidly bolstered its military presence after October 7th, sending the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean as a show of strength. Soon after, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier strike group was dispatched to the Persian Gulf, putting two carrier groups within striking distance of Iran. Advanced fighter jets and air defense systems were deployed across the region to protect U.S. troops and allies. Joint exercises with regional partners demonstrated unity and readiness. U.S. destroyers in the Red Sea intercepted Houthi drones and missiles, proving both capability and resolve. In response to attacks on U.S. bases, the U.S. launched targeted airstrikes on militia facilities, measured but firm. This military buildup serves three purposes: deterring Iran, reassuring allies, and giving U.S. leaders credible options if deterrence fails. The presence of these forces changes the region's strategic calculus. The U.S. warning is now backed by visible, formidable power. The message escalation will be met with overwhelming force. Allies are reassured. Adversaries are on notice. The U.S. is prepared for any scenario. The stakes could not be higher. The region is on a knife's edge. The world holds its breath. At the heart of any U.S.-Iran conflict is the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point. 1/5 of global oil passes through this narrow waterway daily. Iran has long threatened to close it in response to pressure, a move that would devastate the global economy. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, based nearby, is tasked with keeping the strait open at all costs. Any attempt by Iran to block Hormuz would be considered an act of war, met with overwhelming U.S. force. The recent Houthi attacks in the Red Sea previewed the chaos a conflict in Hormuz could unleash. Iran's capabilities, fast attack boats, mines, anti-ship missiles, are far more formidable. Their strategy make the strait impassable, not win a conventional battle. The economic fallout would be immediate. Oil prices would soar. Global recession would loom. The U.S. warning is both military and economic. Iran would suffer catastrophic self-harm if it tried to close Hormuz. The strait's stability is a red line for Washington. The consequences of crossing it would be severe. The world's energy security hangs in the balance. The U.S. wields another powerful weapon: economic sanctions. Years of sanctions have targeted Iran's oil, banking, and military sectors, aiming to curb its nuclear ambitions and proxy funding. If Iran escalates, the U.S. promises even harsher measures: economic strangulation on an unprecedented scale. New sanctions already target Iran's drone and missile programs and the financial networks supporting its proxies. The U.S. is working with allies to enforce oil sanctions and crack down on illicit shipping. The most severe option: secondary sanctions on foreign companies doing business with Iran, risking their access to the U.S. market. The goal: cripple Iran's ability to fund war and sustain its proxies. The message is clear. Escalation means economic ruin. Sanctions are as central to U.S. deterrence as military deployments. Iran's choices are narrowing. Behind the scenes, U.S. diplomacy is working overtime. Washington must support Israel and deter Iran while preventing a wider regional war. Secretary Blinken's shuttle diplomacy aims to unify allies and engage intermediaries like Qatar to relay messages to Tehran. Back channels reduce the risk of miscalculation and keep lines of communication open. The U.S. also works to prevent a united Arab front against Israel, preserving gains from the Abraham Accords. Public opinion in the Arab world complicates this effort, as sympathy for Palestinians runs high. Internationally, the U.S. builds coalitions at the UN and leads maritime security operations in the Red Sea. This diplomatic push is as vital as military action. The first line of defense is words, not weapons. The balance is delicate and critical. The U.S. warning to Iran has exposed deep global and regional divides. Western allies back the U.S., condemning Hamas and supporting Israel, while joining security efforts in the Red Sea. Russia and China, meanwhile, criticize U.S. actions and support calls for a Gaza ceasefire, complicating American diplomacy. Both maintain strong ties with Tehran and use their UN vetoes to block U.S.-led initiatives. In the Middle East, Gulf states quietly support U.S. deterrence but face public pressure to condemn Israel. Turkey and Qatar position themselves as mediators, leveraging their unique ties. The region is fractured, with governments balancing security interests against popular sentiment. The U.S. warning is a move on a crowded geopolitical chessboard. Every actor has its own agenda. The stakes are global. As of February 11, 2026, the Middle East stands at a dangerous crossroads. The Israel-Hamas war has become a grinding, destabilizing conflict. The U.S. has drawn a clear line. Iran must choose de-escalation or face severe consequences: military, economic, and diplomatic. Two carrier strike groups, reinforced air defenses, and active operations in the Red Sea have made this warning real. The strategy is a high-stakes gamble. betting that Iran's leaders will avoid a direct war. So far, Iran has tested limits through proxies, but avoided crossing ultimate red lines. The equilibrium is fragile. A single miscalculation could ignite a wider war. The US has made its position clear, and the consequences unmistakable. The choice now rests with Tehran. The world waits to see if deterrence will hold, or if the region is headed for disaster.